Bilingual education is the teaching of academic content in two languages, one native and one second language. So, bilingual education aims to develop proficiency in both languages while imparting academic knowledge. It can enhance cognitive skills and cultural understanding. So, there are different types of bilingual education. So, number one is the bilingual education. Bilingual education means that students are given information in more than one language. Many educational systems and programs are bilingual in some way, but the extent to which the two or more instructional languages are used and the program structure vary greatly. So next is the submersion. So language minority students are placed in an ordinary classroom where English is spoken. There is no special program to help them overcome the language problem. Submersion is aptly described as sink or swim. The minority home language or the LT is not used at all in the classroom. In Lau Vinicos, the Supreme Court found that the submersion approach violated the civil rights of language minority students and that schools had to make an extra effort to help overcome the language problem of these students. Lau Vinicos, 1974, emphasized that sink or swim approach where language minority students are placed in English-only environments without additional support violates their civil rights. This led to the development of bilingual education, which ensures they have equal access to education. Next is the two-way bilingual education. So, in two-way bilingual education, fluent or native speakers of both English and another language are placed in the same classroom and instructed in both languages alternately. So the goal is for both groups of speakers to become fluent in the other language. This form of education is most effective if implemented for a period of several years or more. So this approach is often referred to as dual language or two-way immersion education. By integrating fluent or native speakers of both languages in the same classroom and providing instruction in both languages, students have the opportunity to become proficient in both. So consistent implementation over several years enhances language development and cultural understanding among all students involved.
After knowing the other types of bilingual education, let us proceed to the number 4, which is English as the second language, or what we call ESL. In ESL, non-English speaking students are placed in English speaking classrooms for part of the day. The other part of the day, the students are in a classroom with a trained ESL instructor. Like for example, us, we are non-English speaking students, and half of our day we are placed in an English speaking classroom, and for the other part of our day we are placed in a classroom with our trained ESL instructor, where we can receive individual and concentrated instruction on the learning of English. In ESL also, the students are held responsible for the content taught in the English speaking courses they take. That makes ESL as a learner-centered. Last type of bilingual education is immersion. Immersion promotes bilingualism with the goal of developing native-like competence in English without losing fluency in a student's first language. Learning by immersion means that the children immersed in a language bath. They hear, speak, and learn the language in authentic everyday context and experience it in their familiar surroundings. This method resembles the way children acquire their first language, in which learners are provided with an environment where they can pick up English with little to no explanation. Thus, they learn the new language naturally as their mother tongue without any pressure or vocabulary stress. They interact with native speakers and constantly develop proficiency by adding new vocabulary and context to their comprehension and assimilation. Immersion is like immersing yourself in that new language that will eventually make it easier for you to absorb and use that new language in your everyday life. Again, we have five types of bilingual education, namely bilingual education. So, bilingual education means students are given information in more than one language. And second one is submersion, means minority students are placed in an ordinary classroom where English is spoken. Third one is two-way bilingual education, means fluent or native speakers of both English and other language are placed in the same classroom and instructed in both language alternately. And the fourth one is English as a second language or ESL, means non-English speaking students are placed in an English speaking classrooms for part of the day, and the other part of the day the students are in a classroom with a trained ESL instructor. And for the last type is immersion. Immersion means children acquire their first language in which learners are provided with an environment where they can pick up English with little to no explanation. And we have also three language system. So students are initially educated in an official state language. A second language, an official language of the Union, is introduced after approximately 2 years. After another several years, a third language or any modern Indian language not already taught is introduced academically. At the conclusion of the child's education, he or she will be proficient, if not fluent, in at least three languages. However, the system does not provide a place for such mother tongues that are different from the regional languages, though more languages are represented in this program. So, do you think being bilingual has positive impact? Why? Well, bilingual education has a positive impact, wherein the students will become well versed. Some school systems claim to practice bilingual education because their cultural minority student knows another language aside from the one used in school. But such programs with monolingual medium of formal instruction do not actually represent a type of bilingual education at all. Their students may be bilingual for the time being, not because of monolingual school systems that are designed to assimilate minorities. So there was a researcher, his name is Baker. He provides a summary of language program for bilingual. The typology of bilingual program has 10 types and are classified into three. And it will be discussed to us by Mika Ella Gasataya. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am here to discuss the monolingual form of language program for bilingual, or also known as monolingual form of education for bilingual. The aim of monolingual form of education is to develop the language skill gradually in the second language so that one day the student will not need support anymore. So in this program, it is focusing on developing our second language, which is the English language. So we have here the three types. First is the mainstreaming or submersion, or also known as structured immersion. Number two is mainstreaming submersion with withdrawal classes, are also known as sheltered English. And number three, segregationist, relating to or advocating the policy of enforced separation of different racial groups. So we have here structured immersion versus sheltered English. So the difference will lie on how the teacher will teach the class. So we have here structured immersion. The student has to swim in the new environment by him or herself, and we assume that one day he or she will catch up. So in this program, it's like the student needed a self-learning first, so he could catch up to his or her classmates. So the next one is sheltered immersion. Teachers are aware that there are some students that may need constant support, to understand the content. The instruction will be sheltered in which the teacher will rephrase the content with a simple syntax, and the teacher will speak slowly, clearly, and frequently to check the understanding of the students. Also sheltered, it support the support of the teacher is there. So in sheltered immersion, as what it said, the support of the teacher is there to give the needs of the student or fulfill their needs in learning. So number two, we have weak form of bilingual education. So the first program here in this group is called the Transitional Bilingual Education. This program consists in teaching minority children in their language until they are thought to be proficient enough in the majority language to cope with it in the mainstream education. Number two, or the second program, is called mainstream education with foreign language teaching. It is about foreign language lesson as a subject in the curriculum. Very often, the chosen foreign language is one of the world mainstream language. So number three, we have strong form of bilingual education. So these are the types of true bilingual education, and the first program is known as dual language bilingual education. So it is also called two-way and occurs when approximately equal number of minority and majority language students are in the same classroom and both language are used during the lesson. The aim is to produce relatively balanced bilingual, which means efficient in both language. So the example of this program is like here in the Philippines, we are both using our local and the second language, which is English, so that the students could fully understand and also developing their second language. So that would be all in our topic, and thank you for listening.